Welcome back to today's video. Today I'm going to go over how Magnus Carlsen completely destroyed the French defense in the 2026 World Rapid Blitz tournament. Obviously did not go on to win the tournament, but he did make a very impressive comeback. He had a rough first day and completely locked in, scoring 8 out of 9 on the 20th, I think, of June. Um, but just to give some context about what the French defense is, you see, actually, I'm using Lichess from now on. I think that Lichess has a much better UI, and also I just like the way the arrows look and feel, and I feel like the game is actually smoother in terms of actual online play. I said it before in a comment. I don't play too much online anymore, so to me, it doesn't really matter about the rating system. I'm going to play with what I'm comfortable with, and that's what I'm going to make videos with. Maybe in the future I'll return to chess.com, but for now I prefer this UI much more. And also I just feel like this looks better on a YouTube video than the old chess.com logo. Anyways, so the French defense starts with one e4. I'm just gonna turn off the eval bar just because it's not the eval bar, the arrow bar, just because it can ruin a lot of what I'm trying to do. You can pause and read this in the left that's highlighted, but I'm not going to read it. But main move with the French defense, e4. You respond with this move, pawn to e6. Idea simple. You don't want to play one e5. You want to try to gain space with the central pawn with your d pawn, as it says in this. But here, white has a number of moves to make. The most common move in the French defense is this move d4, to which black responds with d5, and now you can either play either pawn takes, pawn push, or you can have some sort of knight to c3 with defending ideas on e4. Now, most of the time in the French, people play the exchange just because it gets symmetry. Computer doesn't like it. Oops. Computer doesn't like it. Computer actually thinks that the move probably pawn to c3 is the modern theory, Paulson variation. Yeah, it's the most popular move. To me, I like the exchange, but also I don't play e4 that much. I'll make a separate video. Actually, I'm working on it. I'm gonna make a full set of videos, a full playlist of just e4 repertoire and maybe just my opening repertoire in general that you guys can feel free to copy in your online games. I think I have, well, I'm biased, but I think I have a pretty good understanding of my opening repertoire. But anyways, this is what you do. You play e4, you play e6. But here, actually, I've actually been playing this move a lot. I think Levy Gotham Chess has played this move. He kind of popularized it a little bit, and Magnus actually played this move in the game. You play this very hyper modern move, pawn to b3. You see, computer really hates it, but the idea of pawn to b3 is that you want to fianchetto this bishop and get long-term compensation. So here, black still should take this, and you go here, and here actually the best move for black in this position is to play this move pawn to h3. And the idea is just that you want to prevent pawns, or not pawns, you want to prevent knights from landing here. You want to cut off access of this light squared bishop to get this check in, and then you have to get this, and you kind of have to damage your pawn structure, or you develop in an unfashioned way. And this is also a multifaceted move because in the French defense, you have this idea called the French bishop, which is that because you commit so many pawns on the light square so early, if black or if white decides to play something like the advanced, you basically want to trade off your bishops because you're going to have this locked center. That's the idea with the French. It's a very common idea. It's called the French bishop. But here, because black has two pawns on the light squares, you don't want to allow white to trade off its light squared bishop. So let's say, going back, I don't know, you just have something like maybe pawn takes, you do this. Computer doesn't like it, but let's just say for argument's sake, you do something like this. And here you actually just trade it off and you have doubled pawns, or you could play something like this, and here you see this bishop will never come out, it will be permanently blocked. But that's kind of the idea. Obviously, these aren't good moves, but that's just the idea. You want to prevent white from being able to easily trade off its light squared bishop. Now back to the game. We're going to start off. Magnus plays move e4, pawn to e6, and pawn to b3. Also, if you guys don't like this, just let me know in the comments. This sort of analysis bar that Leaches has, I also think this is really good. You see, chess.com, you kind of have to, you don't really get these. These are already like analyzed and comments already put in, which I kind of like. Um, I'm not going to be reading off of these, but definitely like these are main stuff that I'm maybe not going to go full in depth on all the lines, but I will be talking about the main ideas of each inaccuracy and mistake. And I don't think there's any blunders, but yeah. So already we went through this already. And here actually, probably going to slaughter his name, but Sasanto, he plays the move. He doesn't play this move h3, which the computer recommends. He plays this move knight to f6. The idea is simple, that it wants to put pressure on this and sort of do this invisible hand move. But this is actually a very big mistake in a sense, because if you push this, you're giving white access to just locking your light squares. This pawn's going to be very difficult to break through with. You're going to have to push your f pawn and try to trade and try to just refocus your center. But if you short castle, you're going to have an exposed king. That's kind of how you play this opening with the French defense. Going back to this here, you want to basically try to get a nice pawn storm. You want to get your pawns on these squares. You want to have a nice controlled king side attack, same side king side attack. And that's basically what you see when you play this move. Because if you Fianchetto this, you're never going to be pushing pawns. Not entirely, but when you Fianchetto, very rarely are you going to be pushing pawns right in front of your Fianchettoed bishop. That's just how you play chess. Instead, you tend to try to do these opposite side attacks of your Fianchettoed bishop. And here, actually, if you manage to get a super nice and strong f to h supported by your e pawn, you will definitely be able to break through and get a nice win with the white pieces. That's what Magnus tries to do here. He pushes his pawn, forces Santo to reroute his knight, and he plays this move pawn to d4. Very simple. You don't want to get your pawn taken back without some compensation, so you put this here just to say you're not going to win this pawn, and actually your knight's going to be pretty stupid. Here, best move analysis bar shows this. Santo finds it. Magnus finds the best move, which is this. And now you're probably thinking, okay, but Magnus just killed off his dark squared bishop's activity completely. That's not entirely true. This is easily tradable, and you actually open this back up, and you can just reroute it to something like this with a knight on f3, or you could even go here, maybe try to trade off, put your knight on a3, sodium, and a3, and just try to fight back. Here, Santo plays best move, which is just develop. And here, Magnus plays a little bit of an inaccuracy, pawn to a3. I disagree with this. I actually think pawn to a3 is a logical move. You play this move basically because you don't want to have him, I don't know, play something like this. Let's just say argument's sake, bad move, but you don't want to do something like this and then give him a super nice center with ideas of getting an open file here. Computer obviously doesn't like it, but this is just to show, obviously this probably wouldn't come up in a real game. This is very bad, but just to show you the ideas of what it is. So a3, inaccuracy here. Let me just go through the line. The line was a2, then something like a5, and then develop knight to f3, a4, and short castles, and then let me just turn this off. This is the one thing I don't like. I don't like the best move arrow. Maybe if you guys want it in the future, let me know. Leave it on. But here, I think it's a takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and then maybe you want to put pressure, so probably queen a5, or try to put your bishop here, short castle. That's what I would do. I don't think this is a bad move. Yeah, this is actually just fine. Oh yeah, here it likes queen to a5 because it puts pressure on this, and then something like this. That's kind of what the computer wanted. But anyways, a3, pawn to f6. Idea simple. Like I said earlier, trade, get a nice centered that's supported. Magnus plays f4. Computer doesn't like it. Browser computer, obviously. f4 just to lock this down. Basically, if you take, I'm going to take back. Here, inaccuracy. Bishop to e7. Computer wanted c takes. Sorry. Computer wanted c takes, f takes, and then it doesn't want f takes. It actually wants d takes, just to keep this. I don't really. Oops. Yep, one bad thing. But here, Magnus just develops short castles, bishop on here, and you see this is a big mistake. It's a mistake because remember, you're killing off that light squared bishop's activity. Your light squared bishop. This light squared bishop's still inactive in a sense, but it's definitely doing more than this bishop. It's just sitting behind, staring at its own pieces, blocking its rooks and from connecting to its queen and other rook. Here, knight to d2 with ideas of pushing this, supported by this, and just reinforcing this. Maybe trying to get here and long castle if he wants to. Here, Sasanto finally plays the move a5, h4, very committal. a5, remember, when you play these moves a5, a4, h4, h5, you're basically saying you're going to push that pawn with ideas of putting it on the 3 or 6th rank, or even the 2nd and 7th rank. That's just because you want to lock down the king in some way. If you get a pawn here with no way of being taken, this king can never get to this square. It'll have to go to either a 1 square, an 8 square, or an F, F, C, or C square. And that's just very nice ideas that AlphaZero sort of popularized and Magnus actually utilized in his World Championship games. And I think he even used it against Fabi in a couple of games. Not entirely sure about that here. Knight to b6, queen e2, or bishop d7, and here knight to g5. Computer doesn't like knight to g5 because it thinks that if this is taken, which obviously would never happen, you just play something like this. In fact, here, instead of knight to g5, it actually wanted d takes c5, because after d takes c5, you have bishop takes, and you actually have an opened diagonal with the dark squared bishop that can't easily be attacked. So here, knight to g5 is played, queen e8, g4. You see, ignore what this what the eval bar is saying for now. This is very nice for white. Like I said before, you want to try to get this kingside attack with the white pawns when you play this very dubious b3 line on the second move of the French defense with the white pieces. And that's just because you're going to try to long castle, you're going to connect your rooks, you're going to have this massive attack come in that's going to rip apart. And also you see black no longer has a pawn on the f7 square. Like I said with my videos on this, you can play without an f pawn. It's the g and h pawns that are a little more difficult to play without. I think g pawn definitely is going to be incredibly difficult to play without. H pawn you can get away with, not as much as you can get away with an f pawn. But here you have a pawn, f pawn committed 2 squares up, which is very difficult. You have a knight that's controlling this. So the king can never get there, and you have this attack coming. Here, Sasanto makes a big mistake, which is bishop takes. It's a mistake because now you just play h takes and you open up your rook. That's extra here. Sure, you can get here, but this, if you push this, this takes, and you just allow this rook to come in, and you're going to force this attack to happen. Instead, computer wanted, you can read these moves yourself. I'm just going to show them in case you don't want to read it. Computer wanted not bishop takes, but it wanted this move h6. h6 to kick out the knight. And then instead of this, you would have something like g takes, rook takes, and then bishop takes on f5. E takes, king f2 with the white king. C takes d4, c takes d4, and then something like e6. which is very hard to find, very hard to calculate. So not going to blame Sasanta for finding that. And here he makes an even bigger mistake. G6 with the pawn. It's a mistake because look, now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your 8 pawns on light squares with your light squared bishop still active. Sure, Magnus has a light squared bishop here, but he doesn't have to do anything. He kind of killed off his dark squared bishop's activity. But this attack is just doing much more. Like, you don't need your bishops necessarily in this game to win this. You have these incredible pawns placed, and honestly, your dark knights, your black knights, they're not doing anything. You can't move them, you can't reroute them because of this pawn structure that white has. And you can argue that, okay, well, like, knight is also not doing anything. I would argue it's doing a lot more than the black knights are doing. You have 2 black knights compared to the 1 white knight that you have with the white pieces. So here, continuing, G takes is played. E takes. You want to take this way because you don't want to take this way and expose the white king, or the black king, sorry. And here, D takes. Knight C8, rerouting the knight, which you don't want to take in. Knight F3, Knight D8, big inaccuracy. And you see now, look, white has a bunch of development. It has access to this now. It can play this, it can play this. Obviously, this would be played before this, because if you play this, this is going to get taken by this pawn, and you're never going to get here. You can have ideas to open up your dark squared bishop. And you see with the black pieces, you kind of have these pieces that are just stuck on the back rank. You have nothing that is working. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your 8 pieces that start on the back rank, and you have 1 on the 7th rank. That's a bishop that's not doing anything. So here, you can obviously just look at it and tell that white is winning. It has this nice attack coming that it just has to push a couple more pawns and sort of reroute its pieces. But here you have nothing. You can't bring this knight out without. You're gonna have to go something like this, block your own rook to get here, but this pawn is protecting it. So here, Magnus plays the move c4, kind of relocking the center, saying you can take this, but I'm going to take back one way or the other. If takes, you can take back with check, and that's just fine. So here, Santo makes another inaccuracy. I think it's a big mistake playing this knight to e6, because you want to put pressure on this pawn, but you just play this very nice move, queen to h2, with ideas of mate coming. And here, pawn to h5 is not the move played. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with this. But here, you just shuffle your pieces that we already showed. h2 with ideas of this. Here, queen f7 is played because you want to protect against this mate. And you play c takes, knight takes, bishop c4, x-ray, and you're going to push this and just x-ray, and this is a skewer, fork, whatever you want to call it, x-ray, call it what you want. Rook to e8, long castles finally. Remember I said this is the idea when you play this, you want a long castle with these sort of Al-Yokin guns, Al-Yohin, pawn. You have very nice ideas. I wonder if you could have played this move first. Yeah, you can't play this move because it just doesn't work. You can play this, blocks, yeah. So here are long castles, knight b6, e6. Very nice idea. You would have to take something or you're going to lose something. So knight takes, and here you play this move, d takes, bishop takes, knight e5, attacking this queen, so you can't take this, damaging this. So the queen has to slide to the c7 square. And you play this nice move, rook to d7, and here Sasanta resigned because you can't really do anything. You can't go anywhere without just immediately losing on the spot. If you do something like takes, you can take back with the knight, and here there's not much you can do. You can't take that with this, so you're gonna have to take something like this, and then you just have a very nice checkmate on the black king. So here you see how Magnus just sort of destroyed the French defense, and the French defense isn't a bad opening. By no means is it a bad opening. I actually think the French defense is a very nice looking opening. It's very symmetrical, which I kind of like. Just going back to this, you have something like this, 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 usually this, this. And honestly, I told you I played the exchange a lot. I like this too if I ever play the French. I think it's just very gets very cagey chess and usually can lead to a draw unless you make some sort of breakthrough. I think this is a very good breakthrough that you can play. Some people like this. It's not a big, very good move because you just develop like this. Maybe you might want you to do this, but I, like I said before, I'm a very much believer in these sort of hyper modern systems. So the very fact that Magnus played this B3, it's very interesting, and it just shows how great these hyper modern openings are. And with this, I told you, just idea simple. You just push these pawns, long castle, get your rooks, queens into the game, and even that's just something you can take just to learn. You don't want to trade your queens and rooks off early if you play these sort of ideas where you want to upside castle and launch an attack. That's very just standard chess. Like you have to understand these openings to actually play them well. And Magnus just showed how he just slaughtered Sasanto with this sort of very hyper modern approach on the French defense. Now, if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what other videos you want to see in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.